The shuttle descended slowly through the thick clouds of the alien world. Captain Mira Hayes leaned forward in her seat, her eyes fixed on the glowing surface below. The planet of Thraxis was unlike any other world she had seen. Its atmosphere shimmered with colors that changed as the sun shifted, and its vast forests looked alive, almost as if they were watching the incoming ship. The land below stretched wide, covered with black trees and sharp mountains that looked like teeth biting at the sky. Mira had traveled to many planets during her years of service, but none had made her feel this cautious. The Thraxis were known throughout the galaxy as apex predators, creatures so strong and fierce that entire civilizations stayed away from their territory. Their claws could cut through metal, their teeth could crush stone, and their senses were sharper than any machine built by humans. Most species whispered about them in fear, yet here she was, leading a small human team right into the heart of their world. "Captain," her second officer, Daniel Rourke, said quietly from the seat beside her, "I still can't believe they invited us here. Do you think this is a trap?" Mira shook her head slowly. "If they wanted us dead, Daniel, we wouldn't have made it past orbit. No, this is something else." The rest of the crew remained silent, each lost in their own thoughts. Everyone knew the legends of the Thraxis. They were not conquerors, not empire builders, but their reputation as hunters had spread across hundreds of systems. Even the most advanced species treated them with respect and distance. And now, for reasons no one understood, the Thraxis had opened their gates to humans. The shuttle touched down on a vast stone platform. Waiting for them were 10 towering Thraxis warriors. Their bodies were armored with thick scales that reflected the sunlight, their eyes glowing a golden hue. Each one stood taller than any human, their powerful frames radiating danger, but none of them moved aggressively. Instead, they stood in complete silence, watching the humans carefully. Mira stepped forward first, her boots clicking against the stone. She raised her hand in the universal gesture of peace. "We come in friendship," she said firmly, her voice steady even though her heart pounded in her chest. The largest Thraxis warrior tilted his head, studying her. Then he spoke in a deep voice that echoed across the platform. "Humans, you are welcome." The crew exchanged uneasy glances. The word welcome was not one anyone expected from creatures like these. The humans were led through a massive city built into the cliffs and mountains. The architecture was unlike anything Mira had seen before. Towers of stone and crystal rose into the air, their sides carved with patterns that told ancient stories. Bridges stretched from one cliff to another, suspended above roaring rivers below. Every corner of the city seemed alive with movement. Massive Thraxis moving gracefully, their tails swaying behind them, their eyes alert. What surprised Mira most was the silence. For all their size and power, the Thraxis did not roar, did not shout. They moved with the stillness of predators, each step deliberate and quiet. It made the humans feel small and fragile, like prey walking among lions, and yet there was no hostility. The Thraxis citizens stared at the humans, but not with anger. Their gazes were intense, curious, and almost, Mira struggled to describe it, hopeful. That night, after being given quarters within a carved hall, Mira walked outside to clear her mind. She stood on a balcony, staring at the alien sky filled with 3 moons. The air was cool and carried a strange scent of metal and rain. She was lost in thought when a shadow fell over her. Turning, she froze. A Thraxis matriarch stood there, taller than any warrior Mira had seen. Her scales shimmered with deep crimson patterns, and her golden eyes glowed softly in the moonlight. In her arms, she carried a small hatchling. The creature looked like a miniature version of the predator, with sharp claws and glowing eyes, yet its face held innocence. The matriarch stepped forward slowly, her movements calm. Mira's crew inside the hall stirred, alarmed, but Mira raised her hand, signaling them to hold. The Thraxis mother lowered herself to one knee before Mira. To the captain's shock, the towering predator bowed her head, a gesture of respect. Then, without a word, she extended the hatchling toward Mira. Mira's heart raced. She looked into the small creature's glowing eyes, expecting fear or aggression. Instead, the hatchling chirped softly and reached out its tiny clawed hand, touching Mira's arm gently. The matriarch spoke in a deep, rumbling voice. "Protect." The single word echoed like thunder in Mira's mind. She looked back at the hatchling, then at the kneeling predator. The meaning was clear. The most dangerous species in the galaxy was entrusting its child to her. Daniel rushed forward, his voice shaking. Captain, what just happened? Mira held the hatchling carefully, feeling its warmth against her chest. She looked at her crew, then back at the matriarch, who watched her with unwavering eyes. I think, Mira said softly, we've just been given a responsibility we don't yet understand. The Thrax's mother rose to her full height, nodded once, and then walked away, leaving the hatchling in Mira's arms. The crew stood in stunned silence, unable to process what they had witnessed. The galaxy's apex predators, feared by all, had done the unthinkable. They had asked humans, not warriors, not leaders, not machines, but fragile, ordinary humans to guard what was most precious to them. As the hatchling snuggled closer to her, Mira felt a chill run down her spine. She didn't know why the Thraxes trusted them. She didn't know what it meant for the future. But one thing was certain. Everything had just changed. The hatchling was small, but in Mira's arms it felt heavier than it looked. Not because of its weight, but because of the meaning. She could not stop thinking about the moment when the Thraxis matriarch placed the child in her hands. It was not just trust, it was something deeper, something that shook her more than any battle ever had. Her crew was restless. Daniel paced the hall, muttering under his breath. Clara, their medic, studied the hatchling with both fascination and caution. Captain, Clara whispered, we don't even know how to feed it. What if we do something wrong? Mira looked down at the little creature. Its golden eyes blinked slowly as it clung to her uniform. It made a soft clicking sound, almost like a purr. We'll figure it out, Mira replied. If they trusted us with this life, then we'll honor it. The next morning, the humans stepped into the city carrying the hatchling. Immediately, the Thraxis citizens turned their heads. Mira noticed the difference in their eyes. These powerful hunters, so feared across the stars, did not glare with suspicion. Instead, their expressions softened. Some even lowered their heads slightly as the humans passed. It was as if by holding the hatchling, Mira's team had become something sacred in their eyes. Daniel whispered, They're looking at us like guardians, or something more, Clara added quietly. They were guided to a chamber where more hatchlings rested in stone nests. Mira realized this was a nursery, and dozens of Thraxis mothers and fathers stood around the edges. Yet when the humans entered, the room grew still. Several hatchlings crawled from their nests, their glowing eyes fixing on Mira and her crew. To the humans' shock, the young ones rushed forward, chirping, not to their parents but to the humans. Tiny claws clutched at Daniel's boots. One climbed onto Clara's arm. Another tugged playfully at Mira's hair. And instead of stopping them, the Thraxis adults simply watched, their sharp faces calm and approving. This doesn't make sense, Daniel said, gently lifting a hatchling that tried to climb his leg. They're predators. They should be afraid of us, or at least cautious. Clara smiled softly, holding a hatchling that curled against her chest. Maybe that's exactly why they aren't. We don't feel like predators to them. For several days, the humans remained in the nursery, learning the rhythms of Thraxis young. The hatchlings were curious and active, climbing walls, chasing each other, and making clicking calls that echoed like laughter. They were strong too, strong enough that Daniel nearly toppled when two of them leaped onto him at once. Yet they were gentle with the humans, never scratching or biting. The crew grew attached quickly. Daniel often joked about wanting to take one home. Clara sang soft human lullabies that quieted the restless hatchlings at night. Even Mira, who always carried the weight of command, found herself smiling as a hatchling nestled against her shoulder and slept soundly. But peace never lasted long in a galaxy filled with danger. One night, Mira was woken by a low growl outside the hall. She rose quietly, signaling her crew to stay silent. The hatchling stirred, sensing something strange. Stepping to the balcony, Mira looked into the darkness of the forest beyond the city. Movement caught her eye. Shadows slithering between the trees. They were not Thraxis. Within moments, alarms sounded. Thraxis warriors appeared on the walls, their golden eyes burning as they prepared for battle. But something strange happened. Instead of rushing to the nursery, the warriors formed a circle around the outside, holding the line but not moving in. Mira's chest tightened. The enemy, creatures with lean, scaled bodies and snapping jaws, rushed toward the nursery. Rival predators. They had chosen the perfect target, the children of the galaxy's strongest hunters. Clara grabbed Mira's arm. Why aren't the Thraxis coming inside? Mira's gaze hardened. Because they expect us to protect them. Daniel's eyes widened. Us, Captain, we're not soldiers. We can't fight like they can. We don't need to fight like them, Mira said firmly. We fight like humans. The hatchlings whimpered, crowding close to the humans as the first of the attackers slipped through a gap in the defenses. Mira drew her pulse pistol, her crew following suit. They positioned themselves in front of the hatchlings, creating a wall with their own bodies. The enemy predators leapt forward. Mira fired a controlled burst, forcing them back. Daniel used drones to block an entry point, sparks lighting the dark hall. Clara pulled the hatchlings into a corner, her body shielding them. It wasn't easy. The predators were fast, striking from shadows, their claws scraping stone. But the humans fought with teamwork, covering each other, predicting attacks, and refusing to yield an inch. Mira shouted orders. Daniel laid quick traps with the equipment they had carried, and Clara calmed the hatchlings to keep them quiet and hidden. One predator lunged at Mira. She rolled aside, firing at close range, and the creature tumbled down. Another tried to snatch a hatchling, but Daniel tackled it with surprising courage, forcing it back until Mira finished it with a clean shot. The battle lasted only minutes, but to the humans it felt like hours. When at last the remaining predators fled into the forest, silence fell again. The Thraxis warriors on the wall still held their line, never once stepping into the nursery. Mira understood then, this was a test of trust. She looked down at the hatchlings. They were safe. Not one had been harmed, and they clung to the humans tighter than ever, chirping softly, eyes glowing with trust. Daniel leaned against the wall, breathing hard. We actually did it. Clara smiled faintly, stroking the small head of the hatchling in her arms. We protected them. The Thraxis matriarch appeared once more, stepping into the hall. She looked at the fallen predators, then at the humans standing guard before the children. Her golden eyes softened, and for the first time, Mira saw something almost like gratitude in them. The matriarch lowered her head. Humans, guardians, Mira felt the weight of those words. She realized then that this was more than diplomacy, more than an alliance. The Thraxis, the most feared hunters in the galaxy, had given humanity their greatest treasure, their children, and the humans had proven worthy. As dawn broke, light shining through the carved stone walls, Mira held the hatchling close. She whispered softly, more to herself than anyone else. We'll protect you, no matter what. The hatchling chirped and closed its eyes, safe in her arms, and Mira knew the galaxy had just shifted in ways no one could yet imagine. The nursery hall was quiet after the raid, but Mira knew that silence never lasted long in this galaxy. Word of the attack had already spread. By morning, envoys from other alien species arrived in the Thraxis city, demanding to know what had happened. Mira and her crew stood on the balcony of their quarters, watching the gathering below. Dozens of alien ships had landed, their banners and colors flying. These were not friends, they were rivals, curious neighbors, and even enemies who feared both the humans and the Thraxis. Daniel crossed his arms. They don't look happy. Clara, holding a hatchling that refused to leave her side, nodded. Of course not. They just learned that the galaxy's most dangerous hunters handed their children over to humans. If I were them, I'd be confused too. Mira stayed quiet, her eyes fixed on the Thraxis elders who had gathered in a great stone circle to meet with the visitors. The elders were massive, their scales dark and patterned with age. They were respected as hunters, but also as keepers of tradition. Today, however, they looked uneasy. The first envoy, a tall insect-like alien, hissed angrily. Why do you let these fragile beings care for your young? Do you not see the insult? Do you not see the danger? Another envoy, a scaled reptilian figure, snarled. The Thraxis are apex predators. To give your children to humans is weakness. If you cannot protect your own kind, then you are not the hunters we feared. The words echoed in the stone chamber. Mira's fists clenched at her sides. She wanted to shout back to defend her people, but she held her tongue. This was not her moment to speak, at least not yet. The Thraxis elder raised his clawed hand, silencing the envoys. His golden eyes swept across the crowd before he finally spoke. Humans are not weakness. They are necessity. The chamber fell into silence. Mira felt her heart beat faster. She turned to Daniel and Clara. This is it. This is what we've been waiting to hear. The elder continued, his deep voice carrying weight. You all know the Thraxis as predators. You know our claws, our teeth, our strength. You know that we have never been conquered. But what you do not know, What you could never understand is the price of our nature. Mira leaned forward, listening closely. The elder's eyes grew distant, his tone heavy with memory. For countless ages, our people believed strength was all that mattered. From the moment our young could crawl, they were tested. Those who were weak did not survive. It was the way of the hunter. It was the way of the Thraxis. Gasps filled the chamber. The envoys looked at one another in disbelief. Mira's chest tightened. She had suspected something, but to hear it spoken so openly was shocking. The elder went on. Our young grew strong, yes, but many did not live long enough to grow at all. We nearly destroyed ourselves with this path. We became feared by all, yet our numbers dwindled. The galaxy saw us as unshakable hunters, but in truth we were dying. The words hit Mira hard. She thought of the hatchlings curled against Clara, chirping happily, safe and warm. To imagine those little ones forced to fight for survival instead of being nurtured, it made her heart ache. The elder turned then, his gaze settling on Mira and her crew. Then humans came, small, fragile, weak by every measure, and yet our young did not fear them. For the first time in our history, our hatchlings crawled not to their parents, not to their warriors, but to the humans. They trusted. They laughed. They lived! The envoys erupted in shouts. Some called it madness, others a lie. But Mira saw the truth in the eyes of the Thraxis around her. They all remembered the same thing. Another elder spoke now, her voice softer but no less powerful. You ask why we let humans guard our children? Because when they are with us, our young learn fear. But when they are with humans, they learn peace. And a predator that learns peace can also learn to protect, not only to destroy. Mira stepped forward then, unable to stay silent any longer. The envoys turned their eyes to her, some with scorn, some with curiosity. She lifted the hatchling in her arms, its golden eyes blinking softly at the gathered crowd. You see us as fragile, Mira said firmly. You see us as prey. But tell me, what other species in this galaxy has been asked by the most dangerous hunters alive to guard their future? What other people have been trusted with a task greater than survival? Her voice carried across the chamber, strong and steady. You fear us because you don't understand us. But the Thraxis do. They see something you cannot. They see that humans are not predators. We are not prey. We are protectors. And that is why their children live. The hatchling chirped at that moment as if agreeing. Mira smiled faintly and held it closer. Silence followed her words. The envoys shifted uneasily, but none spoke. The Thraxis elders bowed their heads slightly toward Mira, an acknowledgement that stunned even her. The elder who had first spoken raised his claw again. This is the truth of the Thraxis. We are strong in battle, but humans are strong in ways we cannot be. They guard life. They nurture it. That is why we trust them. That is why our young will grow. The meeting ended with no agreement from the other species, only silence and uneasy stares. But Mira knew the truth had been spoken, and once spoken, it could not be ignored. That night, as Mira sat with the hatchlings gathered around her, she thought of what the elder had said. The galaxy saw the Thraxis as apex predators, but beneath that image was a fragile truth. Without humans, their children might never know safety, never know peace. Clara leaned against the wall, smiling as the hatchlings climbed into her lap. You realize what this means, don't you, Captain? Mira nodded slowly. It means we're not just visitors here. We're part of their future. Daniel chuckled softly, though his eyes held wonder. Never thought I'd see the day when the galaxy's most feared hunters called us their guardians. Mira looked at the sleeping hatchling in her arms, its tiny claws curled against her uniform. She whispered softly, Maybe the galaxy needs to learn that sometimes the strongest thing you can do is protect. The moons rose high over the Thraxis city, casting silver light across stone towers and dark forests. Somewhere deep within, Mira felt the weight of history pressing upon her shoulders. The secret was no longer hidden. The bond between humans and Thraxis had been revealed to the galaxy, and though many would resist it, Mira knew the truth could not be undone. The predators had chosen humanity, not because of power, not because of strength, but because humans gave them something no one else could, a chance for their children to live. The city of Thraxis buzzed with tension. The great nesting season had begun, and thousands of hatchlings filled the sprawling nurseries carved into cliffs and mountains. The air was thick with the scent of alien forests, the quiet hum of rivers below, and the soft calls of young Thraxus echoing from their nests. Mira stood on the balcony of the central hall, holding a hatchling carefully against her chest. Below, her crew moved swiftly, preparing for the day ahead. Drones hovered in the sky, nets and barriers were checked, and the humans themselves adjusted to the rhythms of life among apex predators. Daniel walked up beside her, scanning the horizon. "Captain, something's coming. You feel it too, don't you?" Mira nodded. She had felt it for days. Other species of the galaxy were restless. Word of humans guarding Thraxus children had spread faster than anyone expected. Envy, suspicion, and fear had grown into something darker, and now Mira knew they were coming to test them. Hours later, the first signs appeared on the horizon. Ships of alien design, sleek, deadly, and heavily armed, approached the Thraxus city. From their ranks, scouts descended into the forests, moving fast, silent, but purposeful. These were no diplomats. These were warriors, the humans assembled at the nursery. Hundreds of hatchlings chirped softly, sensing the tension. Thraxus warriors lined the perimeter of the cliffs and walls, their golden eyes alert. They did not charge inside. Instead, they waited, signaling to Mira's crew that the humans would be the ones to defend the young. Clara adjusted a hatchling on her lap. "I can't believe this. They expect us to do it alone?" Mira met her gaze and nodded. "Not alone, together and with them watching. That's all the trust we need." The first wave of attackers emerged from the forest. Lithe, scaled predators, faster than any human or Thraxus warrior, moved in organized packs. Their claws glinted in the light. Their jaws snapped in warning, and they headed straight for the nursery. Mira took a deep breath. Positions. Protect the young at all costs. The humans moved quickly. Daniel deployed drones equipped with nets and energy pulses, creating temporary barriers. Clara guided the hatchlings into safe corners, using her knowledge of human engineering to reinforce walls and create narrow escape routes. Mira positioned herself at the entrance, pulse pistol ready, scanning the attacking forces for the first breach. The first attackers leapt over the walls, agile and relentless. Mira fired precise bursts, each shot calculated to disable without harm. Daniel's drones ensnared the second wave in a shimmering net. Clara shouted instructions, moving with surprising speed, guiding the hatchlings to safer positions. The battle was chaotic, but the humans held. They moved differently than the Thraxus would have. They did not rely on brute strength or claws. Instead, they adapted, improvised, and worked as a team. Every shot, every block, every shouted order became a shield around the young. The Thraxus warriors on the perimeter roared, but only to intimidate the attackers. They did not enter. Mira realized then what the elders had said before. This was humanity's trial. The predators trusted them to show that their strength could come from something other than claws or teeth. Hours passed, or perhaps minutes. Time seemed to stretch in the heat of the struggle. The attackers pressed harder, trying to force their way into the nursery. One predator reached a corner where Clara was hiding hatchlings. She barely had time to block it with a reinforced barrier. Daniel swooped in with a drone, hitting the attacker from above. Mira's pulse pistol forced another back. Then a loud, unified roar shook the air. Mira looked up and froze. Thousands of hatchlings, sensing danger, had climbed out of their nests. Their voices rose together, a chorus of chirps and roars that echoed across the cliffs. Even the smallest ones moved toward the humans, unafraid, as if knowing that their guardians were here to defend them. The attackers hesitated. The sight of the young, fearless and united, was unexpected. And then the humans acted again, coordinating like one mind. Daniel's drones trapped the attackers in tight spaces. Mira moved from point to point, defending every corner. Clara calmed hatchlings while using light pulses to distract the enemies. One of the larger enemy predators tried to snatch a hatchling, but Mira intervened, rolling aside at the last moment and using her pulse pistol to disable it. Daniel tackled another, forcing it into a drone net. Slowly, systematically, the attackers were pushed back. The battle reached its climax when a massive predator leapt toward the main hall, aiming to reach the central nest of the oldest hatchlings. Mira didn't hesitate. She ran, vaulting over a barrier, and placed herself directly in front of the creature. It snarled, snapping its jaws. Mira fired her pulse pistol at the ground near its feet, startling it. The hatchlings inside the hall chirped in alarm, but remained calm as Clara reassured them. The predator lunged, and Mira dodged with precise timing. Daniel and Clara attacked from both sides, using every tool at their disposal. The predator finally retreated, limping into the forest as the humans stood firm. Silence returned to the cliffs. The air was heavy with tension, the only sounds those of breathing humans and the soft calls of hatchlings. Mira looked around. Every human on her team was exhausted, every hatchling safe. The Thraxis warriors slowly entered, their massive forms moving through the nursery. The matriarch who had first entrusted her child to Mira stepped forward. She gazed at the humans, then at the hatchlings. Her golden eyes shone with something Mira had never seen before: pride. "You have done more than survive," the matriarch said, her deep voice echoing in the hall. "You have proven that humans can protect what we cannot protect alone. You have shown strength beyond strength. You have shown wisdom beyond age. You are our guardians." Mira felt her chest tighten. She had never felt such an honor nor such responsibility. She looked at Daniel and Clara, both of whom were holding hatchlings, their eyes wide with disbelief. The matriarch continued, "Let it be known across the galaxy, no predator, no hunter, no rival can challenge the bond between Thraxis and humans. Here the young are safe. Here the future is protected." Outside, the forest slowly calmed. The enemy predators had retreated, and the Thraxis warriors formed a protective perimeter. The humans were exhausted, covered in scratches and sweat, but their hearts were full. Mira held the hatchling close, feeling its small body relax against hers. She whispered softly, "We did it. We really did it." Daniel knelt beside her, speaking quietly to the group. "You know what this means, right? The galaxy will never see humans the same way again. Not as prey, not as weak, not as unimportant. They'll know. We protect life when no one else can." Clara smiled, brushing a hatchling's tiny claws. "And maybe, just maybe, that's what makes humans special. We fight not because we want power, but because we want to protect." The Thraxis city stood tall around them, its towers and cliffs bathed in the light of the rising sun. Hatchlings climbed into nests, chirping softly. The humans stayed among them, watching, guarding, ensuring that every one of the young was safe. Mira realized something profound that day. Strength in the galaxy was measured in more ways than teeth, claws, or weapons. True strength could be patience, courage, strategy, and above all, protection of those who could not protect themselves. And the Thraxis had seen that. For the first time in the history of their species, the Thraxis did not merely survive. They thrived not because of their ferocity, but because of the humans who had chosen to stand in front of them, willing to risk everything for their young. Mira smiled faintly at the hatchling in her arms, its tiny golden eyes blinking up at her. "You're safe," she whispered. "And we'll make sure you stay that way." The great nesting season continued, but this time, under the watchful eyes of humans, every hatchling chirped with confidence, knowing that no predator could challenge the guardians who had proven themselves in the most difficult trial of all. The galaxy would remember this day. The sun rose over the Thraxis city, casting long golden rays across cliffs, towers, and rivers. For the humans, the light was a quiet reminder that their trial was not yet fully over. Though the recent raid had been repelled, the galaxy was watching. News of humans protecting the young of apex predators spread faster than any broadcast could travel. Mira Hayes stood at the edge of the central hall, the hatchlings chirping around her feet. She looked down at one small creature nudging her hand. Its golden eyes glimmered with trust and curiosity. She knelt, letting it climb onto her shoulder. She felt the weight of responsibility, but also a sense of pride. Daniel approached, scanning the horizon. "Captain, more ships. Not like the raid. These are different." "Diplomatic, I think," Mira squinted. Ships from other species were indeed arriving, but this time there were no weapons drawn. Instead, banners fluttered and emissaries began descending carefully onto the landing platforms. These species had come to witness something historic. Clara adjusted the hatchling on her lap, smiling softly. "Looks like the galaxy wants to see what humans can do." Mira nodded. "Then we'll show them. Not by fighting, but by protecting." The emissaries were led to the central plaza of the city. Mira and her crew stood side by side with the Thraxis elders, the matriarch who had first trusted them hovering nearby. Hundreds of hatchlings were gathered in safe enclosures, chirping softly and moving confidently among humans and Thraxis alike. The first envoy, a reptilian diplomat, stepped forward. "We came to test the claim. he said, his scaled hands raised in a gesture of calm. "We came to see if humans could truly protect the young of your kind. What we have seen is beyond expectation." Mira stepped forward, holding a hatchling close. "They trusted us," she said simply. "We did not command them. We did not force them. We protected them, and they lived. That is all we have ever tried to do." Another envoy, insect-like and curious, added, "It is remarkable. In all our history, no species has been able to command the respect or trust of apex predators this way. Yet these humans, the Thraxis rely on them." Mira looked around at the young hatchlings, their golden eyes glimmering in the morning light. She realized that the bond between human and Thraxis was deeper than anyone could have imagined. It was not based on strength, nor dominance, nor fear. It was based on life itself, on the desire to protect, to nurture, and to ensure that the future survived. The Thraxis matriarch stepped forward. Her golden eyes were calm yet full of pride. "Let it be known," she said, her voice echoing across the plaza, "that no child of the Thraxis shall grow without the guardianship of humans nearby. They are protectors beyond measure, and they have earned our trust and our respect." The crowd fell silent. Even the other species present could feel the weight of her words. Mira realized that this declaration was not only for the Thraxis, it was a message for the galaxy. Humans were no longer fragile observers. They were guardians capable of protecting the future of even the fiercest creatures in the stars. Daniel whispered beside her, "Do you realize what this means? Every species will know about this now. Humans, we're not just another species anymore. We're trusted by the apex predators themselves." Mira smiled faintly. "Yes, but we earned it. Not by fighting, not by conquering, by protecting." The following weeks were filled with training and preparation. Humans and Thraxis worked together to build stronger nurseries, safe zones, and monitoring systems. The hatchlings grew bolder, exploring their surroundings without fear. They learned to climb, leap, and play, all under the careful watch of humans. And the Thraxis, who had once measured everything by strength and ferocity, began to learn a new form of power, the strength of patience, care, and trust. Outside the city, the other species of the galaxy began to change their perception. Stories spread of the humans who had faced impossible odds, who had stood in front of predators and attackers alike, and who had protected the most fragile lives with courage and ingenuity. Diplomats, scholars, and even soldiers came to observe, to understand the bond that had formed. Mira knew that this was only the beginning. The Thraxis had survived countless ages because of their power, but now, with humans as their protectors, their future was secure in a way that no weapon could ensure. And humans had discovered a new identity. They were not the strongest, not the fastest, not the most dangerous, but they were guardians, and in that role they could change the galaxy. One afternoon, as the sun set behind the mountains, Mira stood with the matriarch atop a cliff overlooking the city. Hundreds of hatchlings played in the nursery below, their golden eyes shining even in the fading light. "You have done more than protect them," the matriarch said softly. "You have shown my people what it means to trust beyond instinct, beyond fear. You have taught us something no predator has ever learned before." Mira nodded. "We only did what felt right. We protected life. That's all." The matriarch's tail swished thoughtfully. "It is enough. It is more than enough." Below, a group of older hatchlings ran toward humans who were training with them. Mira smiled as she watched. Some of the children mimicked human movements, lifting, climbing, and balancing. Others chirped and ran ahead, testing boundaries. And all of them, without exception, returned to the humans when called. Clara laughed softly. "They're learning faster than I imagined," Daniel added. "And they trust us completely, no fear, only respect." Mira placed a hand on the small cliff wall, looking over the city and the forest beyond. The galaxy was still vast, still full of dangers and mysteries, but she knew one truth that the stars could not deny. Wherever humans went, life could be protected. Wherever humans stood, the future of even the fiercest creatures could be safe. In that moment, a hatchling climbed onto Mira's shoulder, chirping happily. She laughed, a sound full of warmth and relief. The child was small, fragile in form, yet strong in spirit and entirely safe in human hands. The Thraxis elders gathered around, watching quietly. They had seen countless generations of predators rise and fall, but this partnership, was something entirely new. The galaxy would remember it. And in the years to come, humans would be remembered not for weapons, not for conquest, but for courage, compassion, and the power to protect. As the moons rose that evening, casting silver light over towers and rivers, Mira looked out across the city, her hatchling chirping softly against her neck. She felt hope. She felt pride. And she felt the quiet certainty that humans, no matter how small or fragile they seemed, could inspire trust and protect the future in ways no one had imagined. The city of Thraxis would continue to grow. The young would thrive. The galaxy would change. And humans would stand as guardians of life, shining examples that even the fiercest predators could trust them with what mattered most. Mira whispered one final time to the hatchling on her shoulder. "We'll keep you safe. Always. That is our promise. That is our strength." The hatchling chirped softly, and Mira knew it understood. Not as prey, not as conquerors, but as protectors. The humans had earned a place in the heart of the galaxy's fiercest species, and that legacy would endure forever.